Afternoon, everybody. We now begin with our concurrent hall A for the day, where we bring you crucial conversations around two tracks, fluid work models and digital lead. Our next panel here is to talk about expert to enabler leadership in a fluid world. Welcoming our moderator for the session, Alok, Nidhi, Gupta, Managing Director, TalentRecruit Software. Welcoming our panel for the session, Kishore, Poduri, Country Head Human Resources, TBS Bank, M. Lakshmanan, CHRO, L&T Technology Services, and Ashish, Anand, CHRO, SAR Group of Companies. All over to you, Alok, for this engaging conversation. So while Kishore, Lakshmanan, while Alok joins us, why don't we kind of start with some thoughts and perspectives from your side in terms of leadership in the fluid work model? I think we can kind of begin with the conversation with some bit of a perspective from your end. I see Alok has joined us. Hi, Alok.
I hope you can see me and listen to me. Hi, Kishore, how are you doing?
Hi, Alok. I am very good.
Lakshmanan.
Hello, hi, Alok.
Hi, good to see you.
Yeah, same here.
I think we have to wait for Ashish maybe joining. So guys, I think we have to start. Wait for 12:02:05, or can we start? Okay, all right. So thank you very much. For introduction. So we have a great panel today, and eminent panelists from different diverse backgrounds. So I have Lakshmanan, who is visible on the screen. He has a very diverse experience, especially in many IT services company, and also experience into defense sector as well. Then we have Kishore, who has again huge experience, especially into banking segment. And we have another colleague of ours who is going to join us soon, Ashish. He has an amazing experience, one with respect to his experience into BFSI segment, as well as currently has been working into engineering and manufacturing sectors. So we have eminent panelists there. So I'm pretty sure that we are going to have a great session today. So before we start the session, so I will request you to please go ahead with the giving the first poll to the audience who have been joining us. So thank you, audience, for joining this session. So friends, as you know, the topic for this discussion is very interesting, when we talk about expert to enabler leadership in fluid world, So leadership, I believe, is always a guiding force for any organization to not only define the vision for the organization, but also how you lead and also realize that vision, So we always talk about how the elements of attributes or traits of leaders when they are journey towards managing their organizations, and of course during the journey they have at various point of time, various situations, they come to the crisis situations, and I also believe that as a leader, or as an entrepreneur, or as a senior executive, you come across many such situations of crisis. And if you look at today's situation, the pandemic crisis, which cannot be greater than this, who has ever thought that we will come across with such situation in our wildest dream, and this is how the situation are. And even the most thoughtful business continuity plan ever thought of creating this kind of situation and scenarios. And we have seen the situation because of this pandemic. A lot of industries, especially the hotel industry or manufacturing industry or cruise and travel industry, they have really been hugely impacted. There was a study or report from hotel industry there. They reported rupees 1.3 lakh crores of revenue loss in financial year 2021, which is huge and massive loss, which you're talking about in any standard. Of course, these kind of unprecedented times require different approach from the leaders, and we have seen the corporate leaders stepped up, and of course there's a noise coming, so please mute yourself. So they have stepped up and really come out very strongly during this pandemic, when we have seen that there are a lot of decisions, like some of the organization taking the decision to cut off or lay off their employees, or maybe cut off the salaries of the employees. And during that situation, the communication is very, very important and key. We have seen some other leadership situation, Jacinda, who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, her very, very decisive leadership, and also with respect to her clear communication or the approach which she has adopted, that really paid well, because New Zealand has been the best country which has managed COVID situation much better than any other country. And there were 22 deaths that were happened due to COVID situation. And also the New Zealand has been one of the few countries which had opened up or eased out the lockdown restrictions much earlier than many other countries, So friends, when we talk about pandemic situation, we have seen largely the two situations or two pandemic waves. The first wave has posed challenges with respect to the livelihood and the business continuity. And the second wave has posed challenges with respect to the lives of the people and their family members. So my first question will be to Lakshmanan, if you are able to hear me, how in your company or how your leadership has dealt with, the first two waves, and what were the key traits or changes that your leadership adopted that brought the better results or that can be highlighted. So I would be happy to hear from you. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Alok. And, really, nobody heard of a pandemic, right? If I go back to March of 2020, I think it was, we heard about pandemic in China, and we heard about a few, not pandemic, we heard about the virus SARS-CoV-2 in China. We heard about SARS-CoV-2 in Singapore. And, I was in London and I was traveling back, and I was hurrying so that I come back quickly before any form of quarantine and all of that. And, suddenly the pandemic hit us by the mid of March. And, if anybody would say that we have dealt with the pandemic in the past, then it is not true. So it was difficult. And as a leadership team, we huddled together and we tried to do many things to help and support our employees. But clearly, we came up with three important principles, right? Principle number one, we said that our employee health and safety will be of primary importance, right? And we'll do everything to support our employees and our family during this pandemic. One. Two, we said that we'll follow all government guidelines on the subject in all the geographies where we operate, right? If there is a quarantine procedure to be followed, if the offices have to be shut down, if the offices have to work at 50%, social distancing, so we simply said that we will follow all government guidelines for that geography or location. And three, we said that we being engineering services organization and not necessarily IT services, we said that all our offices will continue to remain open, of course, subject to government guidelines, and our leaders will be available for any form of consultation and support, right, for our employees. And these were the three principles that our CEO and the leadership team decided way back in March of 2020. And we still follow those three principles, right, to the T. Of course, wave one and then wave two, we slightly amended some of those principles. But broadly, these were the three guiding principles, and there were several secondary activities or decisions that we took. But it was very clear to every leader in the company. It was very clear to every location in every geography that we operated that this is what we will do, and we stuck to it. Of course, we took several other, like medical insurance and anytime doctor, and helping our employees with vaccination. So we took so many other actions. But these three principles we articulated in March 2020, and we still live by those principles.
That's great. So great to hear. You have built some three principle story, and that's continuing with some minor changes in the second wave. I'm pretty sure that the organizations have come out with a lot of ideas, and also your team members have really got the benefit through those processes. So let me go to Kishore. Kishore, maybe I'd like to ask the same question to you: how your leadership has dealt with these two waves of pandemic, and what attributes of your leadership that would like to describe which have worked well during this pandemic time?
Yeah, thanks, Alok, for the question. So DBS Bank, which is basically of Singapore parentage, has two sub-segments in the country, in India. One is an international bank with a MNC background, and there is a technology hub we have at Hyderabad, global technology hub, where we have tech developers, from 4,000 plus people working out of Hyderabad in two huge offices. So when the pandemic started for us, at DBS, the pandemic started much before it started in India. It started, if you remember, in China. We have presence in China, Hong Kong, Singapore. So we have presence in 19 countries. And if you remember, China, Hong Kong, and Singapore got impacted much before India got impacted. So we were aware of this even before it came to India. And as a philosophy, we said, yes, like Alex mentioned, we said that health and wellness is very important. And to kind of remember our parentage, DBS is always been regarded as the best employer, and we always seen ourselves as an extended family. The culture in the organization is like we are one family and we will take care of each other. So with that philosophy, when the wave one started, there was a shortage of medication masks in countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, and China. And from India, actually, that point of time, we didn't see anything. So we exported and helped with medicines and masks and all. And then the wave one started. Obviously, again, like Lakshmanan mentioned, we have a couple of principles in place we put in. One, we said, in the time of crisis is where heroes and villains emerge. And we said, you will be known the way you would react to this as a hero or as a villain. And we want to be seen as, not the word hero, but we want to be seen as an employer who is regarded as one of those who are on the right side of this whole, response. So one, we said, even though banking got impacted due to COVID, due to the lockdowns, particularly the retail banking and the commercial banking got impacted, we said, and it had a huge impact, particularly with the RBI bringing down interest rates, it had a huge impact on the margins. So there was a business loss to that extent. But we said there are no job losses, one. Two, there is no salary cuts. And three, we will ensure that we will actually do additional, because remember, banking is an essential service and we had no luxury of shutting down the shop. So we had to keep the branches open, which means our employees still had to keep the branches open during the first wave when the lockdown was very strict. People couldn't move out in cities like Mumbai. Police were trashing people moving around. So we had to give them special transport, special allowances to come into office, all kinds of precautions. So the branches which are open, we took all kinds of additional measures to ensure that our staff came in and they were provided food and other facilities to be able to keep the branches and the lights on. Whereas the corporate offices and other offices, we kind of brought it down to the skeletal staff. However, as we went into wave two, to answer the second part of the question, and of course this continued, and as the year wave one ended, we were actually able to also do subsequently, as things picked up, our regular increment and bonuses also to our employees. We actually did that in line with our performance, which had some impact due to COVID. But wave two, we realized in India particularly, was a very bad wave. There, and in between all of this, we also happen to have a amalgamation which has been announced by the government of India, where DBS Bank in India amalgamated with Lakshmi Vilas Bank, which was in between the wave one and wave two. So all of us have traveled to the head office of LVB in Chennai. Right now, I am speaking from Chennai, from LVB premises, and we had to actually do the integration middle of wave one and wave two, with now 600 branches across 400 cities. So that was a challenge. And some of us actually got impacted due to this, because I myself personally traveling around got impacted and got post-COVID positive tested for that and was quarantined for 10 days and went through that whole COVID phase. And same happened with a couple of our leaders. And we personally, having experienced in wave two, we said this has to be very different level of response. We actually, oxygen was short supply, if you remember. So we flew in 300 concentrators from Singapore to be available at 10 to 15 multiple hubs in the country to be available to our employees. We said holds no bar, salary advances, hospitalization support, giving extra insurance, extra money, benefits. We did whatever that needs to be done to ensure that employees were taken care, and we kept our business continuity on, where a HR team was working around the clock. HR, 30% got impacted by COVID. They tested positive, but they still went on, kept the lights on for the other employees, ensured everybody got a hospital bed or an oxygen concentrator. So it was a very tough patch, and we had to do all of this and an integration going on parallel. So it was, and the leadership, to answer your question, said that empathy and compassion are the principles in which we will drive this for all our employees, because we're one family. So Alok, I think a long answer to your question, but that's how the basis in which we operated, and it's still, wave three is still around the corner, as they say. We still are into the phase. It's not over yet, it looks like, and still we believe in the same principles as we progress.
No, I really appreciate, because banking services has been essential. I still remember the very first month when the COVID happened, and I had to drive to my bank, and give the salaries, sheet myself, handed over, because there was nobody and there was no driver. So I just drove down, and I can really see that banking officials have really helped, and they continue to be in office even in the toughest situation. And I'm glad that you have been able to take care not only your employees, but also your customers who were largely dependent on various situation, right? So let me come back to Ashish. Ashish, are you available there? Would be happy to see if we can see you. I think looks like Ashish has joined, or maybe some problem.
He's dropped off, it seems.
Yes. Okay, no worry. I think, so fine. So coming back to, we had that option for poll. If we have results, we want to announce, that could be a good idea here. Maybe we can see that situations before we move on to the second segment of this discussion. So Deepak would be helping for the poll or some results.
Okay.
All right. So I think this is one of the poll questions. What has been the impact of COVID on business? And we have been seeing, where there are some votes, 60% people talking there is a moderate adverse effect or impact, and 20% talking about substantial adverse impact, and 20% talking about it has aided business growth. I'm sure that must be from IT service or product companies background. So possibly that could be a situation. So I think it's quite changing now. So it's changing. So fair enough. So in the meantime, we have got some idea, what impact has been done. People have been putting on polls. So maybe we can see at the end of this session. In the meantime, Deepak, if you can help us to put the second poll. So as we go into the second segment of the discussion. Yeah. So thank you very much. So I think thanks for giving us the scenarios how your leadership has really dealt with in the first two pandemic situation. So when we're talking about the leadership during the pandemic, now there's a lot of talk as we think, the word is now coming to see an end of pandemic maybe sooner, because in India we have so far, inoculated more than 64 crores people, right? So let's talk about and understand how the leadership in post-pandemic situation is going to see the scenario change. When we are talking about the office dynamics are changing, quickly. We've seen a situation where we have worked 100% from office. We have seen the situation when we have worked 100% from home. And I'm sure the industry leaders, they have got the best of possibilities with respect to what best has worked in work from home and what best has worked in work from office. And the new situation could be where some of the people could be only working from home, or some of the people could be only working from office, and some could be mixed, which could be hybrid. Maybe they would be coming sometimes from home, sometimes from office. And additionally, the gig economy is really adding a lot of flavor to your, changing work landscape dynamism. That's something which is really emerging well and has really taken a better shape during this pandemic situation. So when we're talking about the effectiveness or efficacy of the leadership in terms of the measurement during the pandemic situation, I have a very interesting report, where approximately 1.4 million employees who have put their reviews on Glassdoor during pandemic time from April to August, from amongst Culture 500 organization. And you will be surprised to know that during that time, the rating for their values and culture has been the maximum during this period, vis-a-vis to 5 years before that time. And that is because of the reasons they have mentioned is the transparency and the effective communication of the leaders. That has been major, reasons that particular rating is much higher during that COVID time. So when we are talking about the post-pandemic situation, let me come back again to you, Lakshmanan, first. In the post-pandemic situation, how the leaders making their organization ready in this fast-changing, work dynamism, and what would be the success criteria to judge their effective leadership in the post-pandemic situation? I would be happy to listen to your thought. Yeah.
I don't have a crystal ball to gaze and tell you when the pandemic will be over. I'm not too sure it is already over. and I don't know when it is going to be over, right? And it's a fairly fluid situation, right? Continues to be fluid, continues to be tense. We really don't know, when is the third wave. People say Kerala is already going through third wave. People say US is going through third wave. The Republican states, southern states of US are going through pandemic. And then you have cyclone or hurricane going on, Ida in US. And you have, heavy monsoons going on in different parts of India. So you really don't know if the pandemic is over, right? And I really don't know when it is going to be over. You can read different news channel, receive different news channel, and read different newspapers, and each of them will give you different views. But I think fluidity is the name of the game, and flexibility is the antidote, right? Which means you have to be flexible at all times. You can say that my offices are open, and you can say that my offices are work from home. You can say work from anywhere. You can say hybrid. You can keep on saying anything. But the fact of the matter is the situation is fluid. And the fact of the matter is, I think no single company, whether it's the large IT companies or large companies, are in a position to say we're going to be working only from office or only from home or hybrid, right? It's wait and watch. And I think flexibility is the antidote, as I would say. Number one. Number two, I think you spoke briefly about the culture. And I think, I personally believe that you can't have a culture for good time and a different culture for bad times, or different culture for pandemic times, right? And from an L&T perspective, I think, like I spoke about the 3 principles, I think we stood by it. Of course, all our employees will vouch for it. And of course, none of our employees saw any salary cut or salary reduction, and got their salaries paid on time. We pay 2-3 days. We pay on 27th or 28th of every month. So even before the end of the month, you will see those salaries going. And I don't think not a single employee, got a salary cut or their salary being delayed, right? So those are some of the cultural attributes of an organization that we stick with. Now, looking forward, whether we will become work from home, whether we'll become hybrid, it will be imprudent for me to say this is the way we are going to go, right? Given that we are still in the pandemic state, and therefore, we are our offices are open, which I told you. The third principle is that our offices remain open. I am in the office, and I don't force my team to come to office. But if there is an important meeting, my colleagues come to the office, right? So that's where we are, and we'll have to wait and watch for another 2-3 months for the situation to become more clear, and so that we can take more firm decisions.
That's great. So as you mentioned rightly, you cannot have different culture for good time or bad time. I totally agree with you. That's how you basically drive it, and same is here. So we are all working from home. So last few days I've been coming to office. So good to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much. Kishore, we would love to hear from you. Okay, how do you see this situation when you're talking? How the same question to you. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Alok. So, as they say, every crisis presents an opportunity. So, at the DBS Bank, we have taken this as an opportunity to see how we can do a little bit of crystal ball gazing for future and see what can we learn and adopt for future, prepare for the future. So, we called it, this whole project we did sometime in the middle of last year, the Future of Work project, where some of the talent across the group, across countries came together and worked on 3 different streams. Which is future of work, future of workforce, and future of workplace. So we said, how's the impact of this pandemic on post-pandemic? What could be the world looking like? And the new normal, as that was the buzzword point of time. If there's a new normal, how does this normal impact us? So we did that, the crystal ball gazing, and we had some interesting takeaways from that. One, we said the future is going to be definitely digital, which is the new normal, as we spoke about in many other forums. And the skills required for a digital world are going to be different, or enhanced upskilling is needed. And what is that skills we need to kind of empower our banking folks? And thirdly, what are those changes that we need to make across workspaces? Because the collaborative world, you need a collaborative workspace. We call it joy space in our organization. And we said that in future of post-pandemic, whenever the pandemic is to end, given that we have seen so many folks working from home, we may not necessarily go back to coming back to full-fledged to work, we said 60-40 policy as a hybrid work arrangement, where we said that 60% of the time you come to work, 40% of the time you can work from home. So that's been now the new normal we have set for ourselves, and accordingly we have kind of constructed a workspace to be able to deliver to this mandate. And more importantly, this means that there is a new ways of working. Some changes we need to bring to our workplace practices or rituals, as they call it. Some behavioral changes that we need to dial up for our managers, and of course some enhanced security protocols we need to put on our systems. So we actually went ahead, kind of did all of that. We enhanced security protocols on our computers, our laptops. While you work from home, you can't take screenshots, you will have a watermark on the screen, so on and so forth. Then we've said the managers, you need to trust your folks when they work from home. You can't just be kind of ghosting them on the laptop and calling them whether the person is on the screen, off the screen. You can't get into that world, right? And more importantly, as the pandemic progressed, we realized that work-life balance became a big issue, and our employees, as we took all surveys frequently through town halls and through digital tools, work-life balance is a big issue. Managers are calling people at 9 in the evening for a project on technology, or for some report that needs to go to the regulator. So we said we put a full stop to that. After a couple of quarters, we said 9 to 7 is the work timing, or 9 to 6 is the work timing, after which post 7 we do not expect anybody to call each other for work related issues. That's not expected, and please do not call. Lunchtime is whatever, broadly 1 to 2. Please do not call people during lunchtime. Give time away so that they can go to their kitchen, get their food, have their lunch, and come back. Similarly, Fridays, no meeting days. You can't have meetings on Fridays. Otherwise, you're doing meetings through the day. So we put some practices in place. We kind of re-emphasize through a regular communication with all the employees that as an organization we want to do this. Of course, the dial-up with the doctors, well-being. In addition to that, last thing we did also, that the whole fun at work is missing. We talk a lot about fun at work, a lot of events, because when you are socially together, you have this social camaraderie. You can't replicate that digitally like we are doing right now. Right? When you are face to face, the camaraderie, the body cues, the body language, the innovation, the thoughts that come in is very different. So we said, how do you bring that in? Maybe while people start tourism, so we started creating forums, fun forums, where we had groups coming, playing music together as a forum, and we called experts from outside or bands from outside, singers. So we created that kind of fun element also, so that the life, as we progress 2 years, we are already into the second year, and how could we make our lives as normal as that could be. So some of these things we kept on doing, and we kept on adopting. And like Lakshmanan said, I don't know the future, how long this is going to be. We keep adopting as we see in this fluid world, as we rightly said in the beginning of this session.
Thank you, Kishore. I think what you mentioned rightly, that crisis to make it as an opportunity. So I still see that banking, mobility. I'll say maybe the digital banking process. So before pandemic, I've hardly used Google Pay or anything else, and during a pandemic and now onwards, I've not touched cash. It's always so easy, so simple to transact digitally. So I think Ashish has joined us. Ashish, can you hear us? If we can see you, if possible.
Hey,
great to see you. Great to see you, and welcome to the panel discussion. So I think the same question I would like to ask you, in post-pandemic situation, how you are seeing that your leaders in your organization, they are going to see the situation of fast changing landscape of the world, and how you will see that what could be the success, metrics, what you foresee from now, in post-pandemic situation.
Okay. So thanks a lot and having me here, and my fellow colleagues have pointed out very relevant points. I'll give another very different perspective around this whole the pandemic situation. I mean, in my understanding and experience. Look, I think when the pandemic hit the wave 1 and wave 2, wave 1 was kind of a shock, and everyone didn't know how to behave in that particular period. So one created, did a lot of people did cooking, etc. There are a lot of things which happened around that time. That was the time when the livelihood really got squeezed. When I say livelihood got squeezed, it means the income was suddenly came to zero for all businesses across the country and large part of the world. And that was the time when around 60-70% of the world was under lockdown. And that was probably for the first time after World War II, world was almost all countries were at an equal and even pace, space at that point in time. I think that's the only time 5 billion population was under lockdown. So income was severely hit hard during one time. However, the livelihood, the life of the human was not impacted so badly at that point in time, at least in India at that point in time. So we came back, and so one started to figure out what you need to do and things like that. And we figured out a way right from a time that almost we have beaten pandemic, and we started to become complacent. And in April, suddenly we were hit hard. Within no time, in less than 10 days, we were actually, we didn't know how to behave in that fashion. But what had it done in between wave 1 to wave 2 is that it had kind of sort of mentally prepared you, psychologically prepared you that what this animal is all about. And it's no longer, and this is second time when you saw your own family members, your friends and friends, families, colleagues, etc., getting impacted by that. But however, the business continuity continued. It didn't have the 100% lockdown. It had parts of the case. Country or parts of cases there was a lockdown, so business was was at certain pace in that. So there was a lives got lost. However, the livelihood was still continued. That was the difference between one and two. Now here is the situation. We are still with the vaccination, etc. We are around 65 crore people getting vaccinated. There's a hope that the things will improve, and we're all living in a hope. Difficult to figure out what will happen in times to come. Here is what the leadership has demonstrated and enacted. So the leadership was on a daily basis. Like the previous time, the leadership was on a long-term drawn basis. You take a judgment, take a decision, and then you stay it for 3 months' time and then see the course correction, whether on the human people side or on the business side. So the leadership was far more agile in terms of taking decision and decisive decision. That's the difference I thought. The reason is that anyway, everyone was pushed to the corner for better or the worse, whichever way we look at. So leadership was very decisive. So there used to be a big word of trust and empathy, which a lot of people, leaders in organization we talk about, we genuinely understood at the micro level what trust, empathy, human connection is all about. Because is when I call of trust and empathy, when as an organization we stood up and said that not a single person will lose a job because of pandemic, because we truly believe that you have been part of our organization and have been taken things off together. Because few quarters of a bad month, we are not let you to go down on the street and have no income for your. So when you do this, and this is the kind of a very bold, I mean, I heard Lakshmanan sir was also saying about the similar thing. So this is the kind of a statement when you do and when you act upon is that the trust gets built. So this whole period of the wave 2 and wave 1 and whole 18 months has built, wherever the action has been decisive, the trust has been built very, and that long been building the culture and the values in the leadership. The lot of decisions got fast forwarded, and it's not only about being digital or not digital. So decisions were fast forwarded, and the adoption became much faster than the previous. So adoption, fast forward of decision making, decisive leadership, and empathy and trust. I think these are the big fluidity which everybody dealt with an underlying theme of taking decision on a daily basis rather than prolonging it. So generally, the hierarchies got broken. The another benefit which I saw, I mean, there's a silver lining in everything, is that ability to talk to one to many increased manifold. However, the human interactions have with the fewer colleagues have reduced. But if you look at the other way and a silver lining, your ability to increase to people has increased manifold. And today you could talk to 1,000 people at the width of half an hour or 1 hour, 3 hour notice also, and do a very quick discussion, and at least the messaging happens. Earlier, if you have to organize, you have to do one 9x9 yard full project plan. How do you call, when do you call, etc. And then it used to become a full project plan. So a lot of myths have got broken, and I think that's the key takeaway from mine.
Ashish,
thank you. I think yes. So I think we can go with the poll result, please. So that would be good to have. In the meantime, any questions would be happy to answer.
Alok, sorry to interrupt, but we're actually out of time.
All right, got it. Thank you very much.
But yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all panelists, and really appreciate it. Thank you, Ashish, for making it out. Thank you very much for the entire team, Deepak and team.
Thank you.